This story was submitted by John. I had an experience that I cannot report to anyone and would like to put it out there. It could save someone. There's a serial killer out there. In 2012, when I was 24, I lived in a small rural town called Chatsworth in the state of Georgia. It borders vast wilderness and mountainous areas and has lots of forests nearby. When I was 18, I made a few mistakes that I'm not proud of. I had slept with a 16-year-old girl, and so I have to register as a sex offender for the rest of my life. It's no big deal, but this comes into play later. The only other person I ever associated with was also a registered offender, a man named Fred. Fred worked at the carpet mill with me, as it's the only work to be had in this small town. Fred was older and a bit creepy, but I would put up with him because he would drive me to work and drop me off at home quite often. Usually on my days off, I would go jogging what we call the circle during the night hours. It's a sidewalked path that circles around the rec center and swings by the library. I'm not really supposed to be in proximity because of nearby schools, but there was never any problems and no one really bothers anyone where I live. One day Fred was driving me home, and he seemed paranoid. He kept watching cars and asking me if they made the same turns as he did. He said he was trying to figure out if he was being followed. I told him that I hadn't really noticed. I'm not one of those tough guy types like he was, nor am I prone to any real paranoia. Not then I wasn't anyway. Fred went on to tell me that there were rumors of strange disappearances in Chatsworth and the surrounding cities, particularly sex offenders. I told him, "Relax, dude. You're just being paranoid. People take off and don't register all the time." To which he responded quickly, "Exactly." He was starting to sound a bit crazy, so I just listened and didn't offer any more input. Then he went on to say, "And if no family members report them missing, it is no criminal offense. They take out a warrant on them, not even a search and rescue. There is no investigation into the disappearance like a normal citizen." Then he went on to tell me that he had thought he was being followed a few times by the same vehicle, a dark green SUV, and that one night the GBI had watched his home for the night, informing him that there had been a strange rise in the absconders, sex offenders that flee registration or disappear, and that due to this fact, they would be conducting random stakeouts to try and figure out what was happening. I told Fred that they probably just shook him up and now he was reading too much into it. Then he dropped me off and I went on my usual routine in my small single-wide trailer. As I browsed on my laptop, it quickly occurred to me that anyone could get online and find all of my information. Where I live, work, past employment, everything. It is all public information. Of course I already knew that, but if anything was occurring, there would be no real way to escape for me. I shrugged it off. Fred is a bit weird anyway. I don't even know what his offense was, but I doubt it was as innocent as mine. I didn't even want to know what he did. A couple of weeks go by as normal. I had almost forgotten about Fred's weird stalker. Then he told me something that gave me shivers down my spine. We were driving to work and he was recounting an earlier conversation we had. When I was at his house about a week earlier, we had a couple of beers and heard a car engine running outside. He had told me it was probably his landlord's generator, that he hears it every night for a while, sometimes several times per night. Well, he told me that he looked outside for some reason at around 4 a.m., and there it was, the dark green SUV. It was just sitting in the dark, running in the road, no headlights on or anything. He said that the noise was the vehicle that had been following him. Then he told me that he thought someone had been in his house while he was at work, and that some things were missing, though he wouldn't tell me what. It seemed like things he didn't really want anyone to know about. He also told me that his landlord confirmed that he hadn't run his generator but a couple times that whole month. Fred's paranoia got worse. Then it got better. At first I could tell he hadn't been sleeping over the course of many days. He would say things like, "He's toying with me. The fucker. I know it." Then one day a couple more weeks later, he told me, "I guess I lost that psycho. No problems for over a week. Thank God." I was a bit relieved. I don't like anyone under that sort of stress, real or imagined. A few days after that conversation and no more mention of it, I had just gotten back from my usual jog and noticed that my living room light was off. I know I left it on. Hell, maybe it just blew out. But then as I approached the door, I saw one of my flower pots had fallen off of the porch. It looked like it had gotten bumped off. I still didn't think much of it because there are neighborhood dogs that roam around. Maybe one of them knocked it on my porch. The front door was still locked, exactly as I left it. But as I entered my home, I knew something was wrong. For one, the living room light worked. My laptop was shut, and I never shut my laptop because the screen hinge is broken, so I always left it open. But someone else wouldn't know that. I was afraid. Fred must have been the culprit. I knew it. That paranoid sick freak is now messing with me. Who knows what he wants to do to me? The next day went like normal, but when he picked me up for work, I didn't say much to him. But he acted normal, like he always does. I kept studying him for clues for the next few days, but all was normal. One night on my jog, I had the eeriest feeling that I was being watched. I slowed to a walk and started to cross the baseball field, approaching the library. The tree line of the woods was about 100 yards away, and in the dark as I was scanning across, I saw something. A leg. My heart jumped and I noticed the outline of a person standing on the edge of the woods. I could barely make him out, but I could see he was holding something up to his face with both hands. It reflected the streetlights for a moment. I just kept walking, but at a faster rate. This man looked tall and thin, not short and fat like Fred. I really can't picture Fred going through all the trouble to walk out there anyway, especially in the dark. Who does that? When I got back to my trailer, I decided to do some investigating. The keyhole had scratch marks underneath it. Some looked fresh, and some looked old. I had never noticed them before. Maybe they had already been there when I started renting the place. I don't know. But I didn't want to ask the landlord if something was damaged before I got the place. It just wouldn't sound right. So I just forgot about it. For a while. About a week later, I was waiting for Fred to pick me up for work. He was running late. Fred had his flaws, but he was always early. Always the exact time. Fred was like clockwork. His entire routine was, and so was mine. I tried calling his phone, and there was no answer. Well, long story short, I ended up calling into work that day, and I never heard back from Fred. Ever. The following few workdays consisted of me calling a cab to and from work. One day my supervisor asked me if I had heard anything about Fred, and I replied, "No. The bastard left me hanging and quit his job without letting me know."
"Well, we haven't really heard from him either, but his mother has been calling us and asking about him, and so is his parole officer."
I didn't even know he was on parole, but this was enough information for me to become very worried. Everyone seemed to forget about Fred throughout the week. It was like he never even worked there. It was astonishing to really think about how someone could just vanish off the face of the earth without any concern being raised a week later. About half a month went by before the incidents began, again. Several times I knew someone had been in my home. I started getting many Facebook requests from outrageously hot women that wanted to ask me about everything in the world. I'm not even supposed to have a Facebook, so I deleted mine. Something weird was going on. Often my webcam light would just come on by itself. Sometimes my emails would be marked red, ones that I hadn't read. I changed my passwords, then they got rechanged. This happened many times, so I knew that someone was hacking into my accounts. The other IP addresses that logged into them showed other countries, so I knew that they were using proxies. The creepy happenings during my jogs continued. One night a man jogged towards me and he bumped me really hard. He was wearing a hoodie, so I couldn't really see his face, but the way he kept going, it seemed intentional, like he was messing with me. I saw glints of light in the bushes while jogging, but I dared not to investigate them. A different night on my jog, everything seemed normal, until bright headlights came flying down the road, a road that is a school zone. You don't fly down this road. It is between a high school, a library, and a hospital, and it's right near the police station. This vehicle flies up, and I see that it's a truck, I think. And just as I think it's about to zip past, it brakes hard, and there's a bit of a screech from the tires, and the high beams flick on. I can't see anything. Then it slowly creeps by. I have this overwhelming feeling like a shark is circling me. As it passes by, I see that it is a dark green SUV, a Chevy Trailblazer to be exact. It passes by, and I never see the face of the driver. I immediately stopped going on my jogs. I'm not even supposed to be jogging that route, but it's never a problem, unless it's a problem, so I can't even really report this incident. But now things start to escalate. The online stuff and webcam light, hearing vehicles outside, and yes, it was the dark green SUV. I'm pretty sure it was the same one, just sitting there, except for one time. One time it was a PT Cruiser, black or a dark blue, just sitting in the road in front of my trailer. At first I was too afraid to look, but usually after I made it obvious that I was looking, he would speed off. So I decided to be more proactive about it. I didn't want to call the police because of the little things. Who knows who this is? Maybe he would leave me alone eventually. Maybe Fred just took off, and this is unrelated. It seemed like for a while, the more proactive I was about seeing who it was and getting to the bottom of things, the more he would flee and the less problems I would have. I began to research the absconders. The sex offenders who had moved and not registered to their addresses had almost quadrupled in my area in the past 4 years, and stayed that way with some minor variations over those 4 years. I searched for missing persons in my area, and Fred was not listed. 6 of the people that were listed over the past 4 years were also absconders of sex offender registry. Before that, there were only 2 listed that were absconders, and if I went back 3 years before that, no listed missing persons were sex offenders. But as I thought about it, Fred wasn't listed. Who knows how many have gone missing? The number of absconders from the sex offender registry was 10 through 16 more than usual per year for those past 4 years. Hell, I thought, you're just being paranoid. Relax, or you'll end up like Fred. End up like Fred? How did Fred end up anyway? This was a rough time for me for sure, but it seemed like something I could easily completely forget about, until something would happen. Then it was almost harmless enough to creep me the hell out, but then I could almost forget about it. I went back on my jogs, and for a while, I had no more issues during my night jogs, until the night it happened. I was approaching the area between the library and the local hospital at about 3 a.m. Anyone from Chatsworth will have a clear picture in their mind of this area. Catching my breath, I slowed to a walk, taking in the serene stillness. The cool air rushing down my throat, the steam of my breath, my heartbeat, all the while looking towards the hospital, the only thing with any sort of activity. But there wasn't anyone outside at the moment. It was so still, so calm, so deserted. Deserted, other than the parking lot behind me which I had already passed. Someone had left their vehicle there. The vehicle I saw a couple minutes previous and paid no much mind to. Wait, that was it. The SUV. Was it? I went to turn around and see, and I felt something pop. Something hit me in my right butt cheek. A man approached, not walking directly from the vehicle, but from the direction of the woods. Sort of. I'm shocked, and I look at my now burning numb backside and there's a large projectile. A dart with a colored fuzzy ending protruding from my back pocket. I was trying to run away and remove the dart, realizing it was stuck in me through my pants. I was fumbling and stumbling, and it began to get harder to focus, and really hard to hold myself up. Everything was getting heavier, and if I could just make it to the hospital, if I can just get up to the road and cross it. I keep looking behind me, and then back to in front of me, He's getting closer, and the road seems further and further away. I just can't make it to the damn road. How am I even going to get to the hill leading up to it? What am I doing? Where am I? Things keep getting more and more distant. I have some vague memories, I think, of being carried, of being rolled on something metal that I'm laying back against, something with wheels at the bottom, but upright. I had some vague memories of sitting in a passenger seat watching streetlights go by, then a lot of trees for a long time, then dirt roads, and then mountain roads, being rolled up on this thing again, and then someone talking to themselves, maybe to me. I can't really tell. Everything is so incoherent. I have some dreams, though I can't remember them, aside from them being very weird. I awaken and it is still night. I'm just totally out of it. I'm restrained to a tree, and my pants were wet. Yes, I urinated on myself, apparently. My hands are restrained above my head, and my feet are fastened together into the tree, and I'm very hungry. I'm sore in multiple places, and I can tell that I've been beaten a bit. After coming to my senses, I realize I'm on a trail, tied to a tree. There's a table set up in front of me, with knives laid out, a sign hanging above the table, on the tree just in front of me. After spending quite some time trying to read it in the dark, I saw that it read something along the lines of,
"Don't worry, I will return."
I was scared to death. I've never gone through something like this before, or since. I'm a really nice guy. I would never intentionally hurt anyone. Why is this happening to me? I'm hyperventilating and I'm freaking out. I cry and I scream, but it's no use. Every forest sound I heard, I was thinking it was him. Then it wasn't. I couldn't tell what time it was, or how long I waited, and I couldn't get loose because I felt so weak, and nothing worked. Eventually I hear the sounds of an engine, and I start screaming for help as loud as I can, but the sound just goes away. Time just keeps going on, and then I get that overwhelming creepy feeling again. That feeling I had the entire time I was being stalked. It felt like the feeling of absolute evil hiding within the shadows of the unknown. I know it's him. He's nearby. And suddenly I hear a man's voice.
"Awake yet?"
I don't say anything. Not faking to be asleep, just not saying anything. It is dark though, and I guess he couldn't see me.
"Fuck. I guess I killed him already. Now what the fuck am I gonna do?"
He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was just pissed because he lost something and didn't have anything to do. He sets down a backpack and pulls out a package, a sack of something. It turns out to be rolling tobacco. He sits against the tree and rolls a cigarette. He's tall and skinny, but something he gives off is menacing. It's like how some guys you don't want to mess with because they're big guys, but then there's those few that are small guys, but you just know not to fuck with them. He was one of those. He wasn't big, but I could just tell he was a very intimidating guy. I could smell his cologne as he sat there, checking his phone. He was cussing something about a woman he was texting, and asking if she would see him again, or if she was done with him. I think he mentioned 2 different ones, but I can't remember. Eventually I have that familiar stinging burn inside my sinuses. Oh fuck, I have to sneeze. And then it happens. I sneeze hard and the man jumps to his feet, walking over glaring to investigate. I see his eyes light up with demonic-like enjoyment. Not like he's insane crazy, just really excited. No, this guy was in total control. Total control of everything. He knew exactly what he was doing, and it seemed like he had done this enough to be used to it.
"Oh good, you're still awake. Still groggy?"
It's still hard to remember all of it, but he went on having a very long conversation with me. He did almost all of the talking, and it pretty much revolved completely around him. He said that he had already taken my friend, and then he told me that there had been about 28 others before me. He talked as if this made him look like a god, not crazed like a lunatic. He bragged a lot about how smart he was, how he would use spyware to watch me at home, how he had been in my home many times, and how he knew everything about me. It was like I was talking to Satan himself. He was cunning and in control, drunk with power, and I was afraid, and he was getting off on it. I also remember that he had on a lot of hairspray, or perhaps mousse. He was a white man, maybe in his mid-20s. His hair was dark brown or black, and he styled it with distinctive spikes for bangs. His eyes lit up with total evil when he was happy, glowing with anticipation and malice. As the night went on, I told him that I'm not a bad guy, that I don't deserve this, and that he had the wrong idea and the wrong person. He explained to me that he didn't care. He thought it was funny, and that I didn't understand. He wasn't mad at me. No. It would have been much better if it was someone angry with me. He was doing this for enjoyment. I went on. What are you going to do to me? Please, I won't tell anyone. I promise. He pulls out a knife shaped like a hook. Then he tells me that he will turn my face into a work of art. Then he would eventually be done with me. He didn't actually say it, but by done with me, I knew what he meant. He was going to kill me. This evil man was going to torture and kill me out in the woods, and nobody would ever know what happened to me. My family would never know. Nobody. I would be forgotten, just like Fred. I apologize that I don't remember exactly all the words. I still felt heavily drugged, and perhaps my mind tries to block out some of these terrifying memories. But I know he began to cut the left side of my face, slowly, and held my head still. He was savoring the moment. I could tell. He was trying to take his time and holding his urges back. I don't remember if he told me this, or if maybe I just knew. Eventually he said that he wanted to
save some for later.
He unlatched me, let me drink from a bottle of water, then gave me a candy bar. After crouching down for a while and gathering my strength, he let me take a piss. He told me,
"Don't even think about running."
I didn't have the energy to anyways. It hadn't even occurred to me to try. How could he be so normal with me? And not. After I relieved myself, he latched me back up to the tree in the dark, and he fumbled around for a bit. I could tell he was having trouble, the only time I ever saw him have trouble with anything. I don't remember him leaving, or me falling asleep. Maybe I fainted. I woke up and it was daylight, and he wasn't there. The table and duffel bag he kept his knives in were still there, and the sign was gone. Maybe he took it down the night before. I honestly don't remember. But wait, I'm in the kneeling position, feet still strapped, but my hands are loose. The wrist straps broke. They must have broken loose in my sleep. Maybe he didn't do them right last night. This was my only chance to get out of there, and I immediately took it. The crickets are beginning their sounds and the forest is getting darker by the minute, and it's starting to get late. I'm hurrying to rip apart the plastic wrap that is tightly bound around my ankles in many layers. I finally think I'm loose, and I start to jump into a sprint, but fall onto my face. Still a few more bands of plastic. I notice how sore my face is, the left side, and I feel the cuts that he carved into my face. I get my feet free and dash madly through the woods, not stopping. Even after it is dark, I keep running, tripping over briar bushes, hitting trees face first. I didn't care. I just kept getting up and running until I would hit something else. Eventually, after probably hours of pitch black dashing, I curl up into a ball and silently rest, unsure if I will ever awaken. Every sound scares the hell out of me. It's worse than a Friday 13th movie. This guy is menacing and smart. The next morning I make it to a farm, then to the local highway, the 411. I didn't even bother packing my belongings when I got home. I grabbed my wallet and essentials, left my computer, and caught a bus to another state where I have family. It is hundreds of miles away from Chatsworth, Georgia. It still scares me though. I couldn't tell the police because I would have to explain too many things that I had screwed up on and done wrong, and I would probably end up in jail as well. That man is still out there. I doubt he has stopped. Someone like that doesn't just stop what he's doing. He can always get online and find me, no matter where I go. And I have a horrifying memory every time I look into the mirror. The scars on my face. His art. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you check the description for information on how to submit your stories. Now this story, just like all of my other stories, is claimed to be true. I personally think it's really far out there. There's a few holes in it, but things like this kind of do go on every now and then, so it could be that 1 in a million shot. I figured I'd put it out there and let everyone debate in the comments on if this is true or not. Like I said, it's claimed to be true, but I cannot verify this. So let me know down below, do you believe it? Do you think it was based on a true story? Just like my true Craigslist horror story? That was based on a true event, but it was embellished a little bit. Do you think maybe this story's the same? Or do you think it's completely fabricated? Let me know down below. I'm very interested in what everyone thinks. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. He was starting to sound a bit crazy, so I just listened and didn't. How could he be so normal with me? And not. Right? Wrong. Right? Wrong. Right? Wrong.